There's a moment in every franchise's timeline when everything changes. When the player you've invested years developing, the talent you defended through every criticism, the young star you believed would be part of your next dynasty, suddenly becomes expendable. That moment is happening right now in the Bay Area, and what I'm about to tell you will fundamentally alter how you view this Warriors season. Welcome to Warriors News Fan Report, your trusted source for breaking news, exclusive updates, and in-depth analysis on our Golden State Warriors. I'm here to bring you the latest developments, the insider rumors, and the strategic insights you need to understand exactly what's happening with our beloved team. And today, we're diving into a story that's been building for months, a situation that's reached its breaking point, and a decision that could define the next era of Warriors basketball. Let me start by asking you something. Have you ever felt like you were watching a relationship slowly deteriorate? Where every interaction feels strained, every conversation feels loaded with subtext, and you know deep down that things just aren't working anymore no matter how much both sides want them to? That's exactly what's been happening between the Warriors organization and one of our most talented young players. The signs have been there for anyone paying attention. The contract negotiations that dragged on all summer. The rotation changes that seemed to send mixed messages. The public statements that tried to project unity while tension simmered beneath the surface. I've been covering this team for years, and I can tell you with absolute certainty that we're at a crossroads moment. The decisions being made right now in the Warriors front office aren't just about this season. They're about the next 3 to 5 years. They're about maximizing what's left of Stephen Curry's prime. They're about whether we're building for immediate championship contention or positioning ourselves for a longer-term rebuild. And at the center of all these considerations is a 23-year-old forward who represents both immense potential and significant uncertainty. Before I reveal exactly what's happening and why it matters so much, you need to understand the full context of how we got here. This isn't a story that started yesterday or last week. This is a narrative that's been unfolding over multiple seasons, through draft night decisions, through development struggles, through flashes of brilliance mixed with frustrating inconsistency. The Warriors have been patient, probably more patient than most franchises would be, but patience has its limits, especially when you have a championship window that's actively closing. Think back to the summer. While other teams were making moves and locking up their young talent to long-term extension, the Warriors were engaged in what can only be described as a standoff. Contract negotiations that should have been straightforward became complicated. What should have been a celebration of a young player's growth became a tense restricted free agency situation that stretched on for months. And when a deal finally got done in October, the structure of that contract told you everything you needed to know about. Where things really stood, Jonathan Kuminga signed a 2-year deal worth $48.5 million. On the surface, that sounds like a significant investment in a young player the organization believes in. But here's what you need to understand about the details, because the details matter tremendously. The Warriors insisted on including a team option for that second year. They fought hard for that provision all summer long. And if you know anything about NBA contracts, you know that team options are about maintaining flexibility. They're about keeping your options open. They're about making sure you're not locked into a long-term commitment if circumstances change. Multiple executives around the league looked at that contract structure and immediately understood what it meant. This wasn't the Warriors betting on Kuminga as a foundational piece for the next decade. This was the Warriors creating what one veteran front office executive called one of the best trade chips in the league. They were positioning themselves to have maximum flexibility. And that flexibility was always going to come with an expiration date. That date is January 15th, when Kuminga becomes trade eligible under league rules following his recent contract extension. Now, I want you to pay close attention to what happened next, because this is where the story gets really interesting and where all the pieces start falling into place. The season started, and Kuminga was in the starting lineup. The Warriors came out hot with a 4-1 record, and everything seemed to be clicking. Curry was doing Curry things. Jimmy Butler was integrating beautifully into the system. Draymond Green was anchoring the defense, and Kuminga was contributing as a starter. For a brief moment, it looked like maybe, just maybe, this was all going to work out. But then the wheels came off. The Warriors hit a brutal 2-5 stretch that exposed some serious vulnerability. Turnovers became a massive problem. defensive rotations broke down. The offensive flow that looked so smooth during that early winning streak suddenly felt disjointed and chaotic. And when coaches and management started analyzing what was going wrong, patterns emerged. Kuminga's turnovers spiked from 2.4 per game to 3.1 during his final 7 appearances before getting injured. His decision-making in crucial moments was inconsistent. His defensive attention wavered at times when the team needed him most locked in. Steve Kerr made a decision that sent shockwaves through the organization and the fan base. He moved Kuminga back to the bench. For a young player who had worked his way into the starting lineup, who had been told he was an important part of the team's future, who had just signed a significant contract extension, getting demoted back to a reserve role reopened old wounds. According to multiple reports, Kuminga felt like he was being made the scapegoat for the team's struggles. He felt like he was being singled out while other players who were also struggling weren't facing the same consequences. And then, almost immediately after the rotation change, Kuminga went down with an injury, bilateral knee tendonitis. He's now missed 5 straight games and counting, with his absence extending at least through the upcoming game against Portland. The Warriors are being cautious with his recovery, which makes sense given his long-term value. But the timing of this injury has added another layer of complexity to an already complicated situation. Because here's what happened while Kuminga was out. The Warriors won 3 straight games. Now, correlation doesn't always equal causation, and there are multiple factors that contributed to those wins. The defense tightened up significantly. Roles became clearer for everyone in the rotation. The ball movement improved. Guys like Moses Moody and rookie Will Richards stepped up and filled minutes effectively. Jimmy Butler has been vocal about this, pushing back hard against any narrative that suggests the team is better without Kuminga. He said explicitly, him not being in the lineup ain't the reason that we're winning. That ain't got nothing to do with it. Butler emphasized that improved defensive execution and clearer offensive structure were the real differences, not Kuminga's absence. But here's the reality that nobody wants to say out loud. Perception matters in the NBA. When a team struggles with a player in the lineup and then immediately starts winning when he's out, people notice. Other teams notice. General managers notice. And whether it's fair or not, whether it's an accurate assessment or not, it affects how that player is valued around the league. The Warriors front office is acutely aware of this dynamic, and they're thinking several moves ahead about how to navigate it. Which brings me to what's actually happening right now. The information that's been circulating among league insiders. The reports that are coming from credible sources who have their fingers on the pulse of what's really going on behind closed doors. Mark Stein, one of the most respected and connected NBA reporters in the business, has reported that multiple teams around the league anticipate the Warriors will shop Jonathan Kuminga once he becomes trade eligible on January 15th. The expectation isn't just that Golden State will listen to offers. The expectation is that they will actively explore the market, gauge his value, and seriously consider moving him before the February 5th trade deadline. Stein's exact words were that anticipation grows in various corners of the league that Kuminga will be dealt before the deadline, with league observers viewing a trade as inevitable. That's a strong word, inevitable. It suggests that people who understand how these situations typically play out believe there's no path forward where Kuminga remains a Warrior long-term. The contract structure, the rotation decisions, the timing of everything that's happened, it all points in one direction. Let me break down why this makes sense from the Warriors' perspective, even if it's painful for those of us who've watched Kuminga develop and wanted to see him reach his full potential in a Warriors uniform. First, there's the championship window consideration. Stephen Curry is 36 years old. He's still playing at an elite level, still capable of taking over games, still the engine that makes everything work for this team. But Father Time is undefeated, and the Warriors know they have a limited number of years left to maximize his prime. Every decision has to be made through that lens. Second, there's the fit question. Kuminga is undeniably talented. He's athletic, he can score in multiple ways, he has defensive potential. And at 23 years old, he's still developing. But does his timeline match the Warriors' timeline? Does his skill set complement what they need around Curry, Butler, and Green? Or would they be better served trading him for a more established player who can contribute to winning right now? These are the questions that keep front offices up at night. Third, there's the asset management angle. Kuminga's contract makes him incredibly tradable. He's making reasonable money. He's young enough to have upside. And he's on a short-term deal that doesn't represent a long-term commitment for acquiring teams. Multiple executives have confirmed that he's viewed as one of the most attractive mid-tier trade assets available. If the Warriors are going to move him, doing it now when his value is at a reasonable level makes strategic sense. Fourth, there's the internal dynamics consideration. When a player feels like a scapegoat, when there's tension about roles and expectations, when the relationship between player and organization becomes strained, sometimes the best thing for everyone is a fresh start. Kuminga could thrive in a different system where he's given a clearer role and more consistent opportunity. The Warriors could reallocate those minutes and that salary slot to someone who fits better with their current needs. It doesn't have to be personal or vindictive. Sometimes it's just basketball business. What happens next? Here's what I'm hearing and what makes the most sense based on everything we know. Once Kuminga is healthy and returns to action, expect him to come off the bench in a featured role. The Warriors will likely give him significant touches, let him showcase his scoring ability, and put him in positions to succeed. This serves multiple purposes. It keeps him engaged and motivated. It demonstrates to potential trade partners that he's healthy and productive. And it maximizes his trade value heading into that January 15th deadline when he becomes eligible to be moved. The rotation that Kerr has settled on features Curry, Green, Butler, Moody, and Will Richard as the starting five. That group has shown good chemistry and defensive cohesion. Bringing Kuminga off the bench as a primary scoring punch gives the second unit a dynamic offensive weapon and allows him to play more freely, without some of the defensive responsibilities that come with starting. It's a win-win setup that positions everyone for success while the Warriors survey the market. And make no mistake, teams will be calling. Kuminga represents exactly the kind of young talent that rebuilding franchises covet. He's got physical tools that you can't teach. He's shown flashes of being able to score at all three levels. He's versatile enough to guard multiple positions. And he's affordable enough that even teams without massive cap space can make a deal work. The Warriors will have their choice of offers, and they'll be looking for the best possible return that helps them win now while Curry is still at his peak. Let's talk about some potential scenarios, because I know that's what you're all wondering about. What could a Kuminga trade actually look like? One possibility is packaging him with other assets to land an established star who's become available. We've seen how the trade market can shift quickly with disgruntled stars or teams that decide to rebuild. If a player of significant caliber becomes available, Kuminga could be the centerpiece going out that makes the money work and gives the other team a young asset to build around. Another possibility is trading him for multiple rotation players who address specific needs. Maybe the Warriors target a backup big man, a 3-and-D wing, and a future draft pick. That kind of deal adds depth and addresses multiple roster holes without requiring them to give up additional assets beyond Kuminga. It's less sexy than landing a star, but it might actually make the team better overall by improving the roster from top to bottom. A third scenario is using Kuminga as part of a 3-team deal where the Warriors facilitate a larger transaction and end up with the pieces they need while helping other teams accomplish their goals. These complex multi-team trades are becoming more common, and they allow creative front offices to maximize value in ways that straight 2-team deals can't always accomplish. Don't be surprised if we see something like this unfold. The timeline here is crucial to understand. Kuminga becomes trade eligible on January 15th. The trade deadline is February 5th. That gives the Warriors roughly 3 weeks to explore the market, have conversations with other teams, evaluate their options, and make a decision. 3 weeks might not sound like much time, but in the NBA, deals can come together quickly when there's mutual interest and the fit makes sense. I expect we'll start hearing more concrete rumors and reports as we get closer to that January 15th date. Now, I want to address something that I'm sure many of you are feeling right now. There's a natural sadness that comes with seeing a young player you've invested in, emotionally potentially leaving the organization. We've watched Kuminga since he was drafted. We've celebrated his highlight dunks. We've defended him when critics said he wasn't developing fast enough. We've imagined what he could become if everything clicked. Letting go of that potential, even if it's the right basketball decision, isn't easy. But here's what I want you to remember. The Warriors front office has earned our trust. They've built multiple championship teams. They've made difficult decisions before that worked out brilliantly. They understand what it takes to win at the highest level, and they're not going to make a move like this unless they genuinely believe it. Improves the team's chances of competing for another title. Bob Myers may be gone, but the organizational philosophy of being aggressive and strategic in pursuit of championships remains. I also want to emphasize that this isn't about Kuminga being a bad player or a bad person. By all accounts, he's a good kid who works hard and wants to succeed. This is about fit, about timelines, about maximizing assets, and about making the tough calls that championship organizations have to make. Sometimes the best move for everyone involved is a change of scenery. Kuminga could absolutely thrive somewhere else, and the Warriors could absolutely improve by reallocating his minutes and salary to different pieces. The other thing to keep in mind is that the Warriors are still in a really good position. They've got Curry playing at an elite level. They added Jimmy Butler, who's been everything they hoped for and more. They've got young players like Moody and Richard showing real promise. They've got Draymond providing leadership and defensive intensity. They've got a coaching staff that knows how to win. Adding the right pieces through a Kuminga trade could be exactly what pushes them over the top and back into legitimate championship contention. Looking ahead to the rest of the season, here's what I'm watching for. First, how does Kuminga perform when he returns from injury? Does he embrace the six-man role and thrive in it, or does the tension continue to simmer? Second, what offers start materializing as we approach January 15th? Which teams express serious interest, and what are they willing to give up? Third, how do the Warriors perform during this stretch? If they keep winning and occurring, rotation keeps clicking, that makes a Kuminga trade even more likely because it validates that they can succeed without him. I'm also watching the broader trade market landscape. Who else becomes available? Unate has allowed the Warriors to see what they look like without him and feel confident they can succeed. The market interest is real and substantial, and the organizational priorities favor maximum. Curry's remaining prime years over continuing to develop a young player whose timeline doesn't perfectly align. Does this mean a trade is 100% guaranteed? No, nothing is certain until it actually happens. Could Kuminga return from injury, play so well that the Warriors change their minds and decide to keep him long-term? It's possible, though increasingly unlikely. Could another team make an offer so compelling that it forces the Warriors' hand even earlier than expected? Absolutely. The next 6 to 8 weeks are going to be fascinating to watch unfold. Warriors Nation, I want to hear from you. What do you think about this situation? Do you believe trading Kuminga is the right move, or should the Warriors give him more time to develop? What kind of return would you want to see if they do trade him? Which players or teams would you target? How do you see this affecting our championship chances this season? Drop your thoughts in the comments below because I genuinely value your perspectives and love having these discussions with the most knowledgeable fan base in basketball. And if you're not already subscribed to Warriors News Fan Report, now is the perfect time to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We're going to be all over this story as it develops. Every rumor, every report, every update, I'll be breaking it down for you with the depth and analysis you deserve. This is going to be one of the most significant storylines of our season, and you don't want to miss a single development. Let's navigate this together. Let's stay informed. And let's trust that whatever happens, the Warriors are making moves to compete for another championship. Dub Nation, let's go.